Hi, I'm Milena. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another weekly update. I don't have that much to report on this week other than the big question of will I finish, at least this month, Women Who Run With Wolves. I have just read another 2 chapters that I was not that interested in, unfortunately. And then now I'm reading a chapter that I am really interested in. All the chapters are vaguely thematically, but they're all based on one myth or one story. And then the author unpacks that story and connects it to certain themes that have to do with just anyone's life. I just read 2 chapters that was about connection to other people, also in a romantic way. And this is, I think, typical 90s. It's like acknowledge that non-heteronormative relationships exist, but it's not inclusive in the language further on. So this author may have said in the introduction that you may be a woman who likes other women. In that part of the introduction she included basically women of all sexualities in her book. She then continues to write a whole chapter about the relationship between men and women in a romantic sense. I think she also acknowledged that not everything is gendered. To me, I think this would have been way more valuable if a relationship that is described can also exist between 2 women and still have the same issues that she connects to the myth or the story that she discusses. Plus point of this book, the book isn't focused on European myth or European culture at all. We get stories and myths from all different places, which I really appreciate. Overall, this book is still very much a mixed bag for me, and I do really want to finish it in September so that I can move on to really October reading. I'm not sure, I think I'm now around page 200, nearing it, and it has over 400 pages, so it will take a little while. And then another book I'm currently reading is, I think this is a new release as well, I just have to Dutch check it right here, Young Hag and the Witch's Quest. This is a graphic novel by my favorite graphic novelist, who is Isabel Greenberg. I love Isabel Greenberg so much because it's all about women's lives, often connected to fairy tales and myth, and this is mostly connected so far, I think, to Arthurian legend. And we follow a young hag, who is this girl on the cover, and her mother and her grandmother, who are a trio of witches, and they say that they are the only witches left in Britain. And it's connected to Excalibur somehow. We get flashbacks of Merlin and Nimue, who were romantically involved, I think. According to the legend, at least that is what I have seen in a few retellings of it. I'm enjoying it so far. The art, as always, is amazing. When I'm reading a graphic novel like that, I feel like this is one page, one tiny bit of the story, and it must have taken you 2 hours. So I'm always very impressed by graphic novels, especially graphic novels that contain so many different shots and so many different colors. I'm always so impressed. And I did actually finish Hamnet. I mentioned this book in my last weekly update and that I was currently reading it, and I gave it 5 stars. I think it was already predictable because I was clearly having such a good time with this book. So Hamnet is about Shakespeare and his wife Anne Hathaway, who is called Agnes in this book, or Annies. I think it's called Agnes, but Annies, that's what the audiobook narrator said, who is absolutely amazing, by the way. I saw that Jessie Buckley is doing an audiobook again, and like fun promotion, I guess, for the film or the TV show. I think it's a film, but like not necessary because this narrator is already so good. But we mostly follow Agnes. I'm just gonna say Agnes because I don't know how to pronounce it the way the audiobook narrator did. And her 3 children. She has an older daughter called Susanna, and she has twins called Judith and Hamnet. Hamnet, who is kind of the main characters of this book, but also kind of not, because Shakespeare lost his son Hamnet when he was about 11 years old. It's supposed to have had a really big effect on his life, and it was often presumed that Agnes or Anne and Shakespeare didn't really have a close connection to one another. Their marriage was passionate in the beginning, but then was more of a drag for both of them. Early this century, I believe, oh gosh, I hope I'm saying that right, letters were found between Agnes and Shakespeare, showing that they were very much committed to one another, even though Shakespeare lived in London and Agnes and her children lived in a town called Stratford-upon-Avon. I love the way that Agnes was portrayed in his books. She is very unique and mystic. She has certain psychic, I don't want to call it psychic, but certain abilities that she just feels what is going to happen and what it's supposed to be. I really enjoyed that Maggie O'Farrell chose to give Agnes such a deep and interesting character, because she was more interesting than Shakespeare in this book. And since Shakespeare is like a writer we talk about so much and we all find so interesting, such a feat, I think, to make his wife even more interesting, whom we like never really discuss. It makes so much sense that this is the story where they were committed to each other, where they were each other's true love. It's not the night that Shakespeare had his dalliances in London, but he loves her very much. And the way that Agnes is written, you can truly understand why, because she is like an out of this world woman. And I don't think in a traditional sense, it's not really described that she's incredibly beautiful or that she is very self-sacrificing and hardworking. Like not in that way, just that she is really unique and special and has this connection to animals, to nature, to just human life and to their environment. It's really interesting. Even though she lived quite an ordinary life. Then because we know Hamnet is going to die, we of course know that it will have its effect, and that was heartbreaking to read. I don't think I've ever read such a raw portrayal of grief, and I feel like grief is a very common theme in books, but sometimes I feel to spare the reader, grief is just a few pages and then we have a time jump towards something else. But this book doesn't do that. We really explore what grief does to both the mother, but also to Hamlet's twin Judith, but also to Shakespeare, and how that was really different for everyone and how they could not understand the way the other was grieving. It was absolutely heart-wrenching in this book. What I also thought was really good is that sometimes I feel like loss and grief can be a cheap device for an author to get some emotion out of the reader. I didn't feel like that at all with this book. To me it felt like the reader was as shocked as the character that this had happened. We got such a calm and normal story in the beginning of the book, and then something that terrible happens. And there are hints in this book because of the way of course, if you know history, there are hints. And the way that the story is woven together is that we get flashbacks and flash forwards, so you know something will happen. The history doesn't say it that much. We don't have a lot of records of what happened to Shakespeare's family at all. So a lot of these things are Maggie O'Farrell's imagination. Shakespeare was only a character in this book in the sense of his fatherhood and as him being Agnes's husband. We didn't get anything about his writing career, about his genius. He was just another human being, and I feel like the way he was written was the way that we often write women. And still, I really enjoyed Shakespeare as a character. The whole genius writer thing was just stripped away and we got him as a human being, which I found really, really interesting. Also because him being a genius didn't mean anything to Agnes. Fell in love with him because she saw such potential in him, but I think she saw more potential in him as a creative, as a human being, than as someone who would have a lot of success writing wise. Because there's a part in this book where she's incredibly surprised that they have money. She's like, wait, you have money? And he's, yeah, I have money. I'm quite successful. So that is not at all part of their love and their relationship. They're just two people, which I think is so bold and so necessary for female writers to take such a man genius. And I mean, I love Shakespeare's writing, so quotation marks, but you know what I mean. And to make him just a normal person, and I never really like when we take a person and elevate them from their humanhood. I don't find that very interesting. I think one of the reasons why I don't enjoy reading about royals, because that is the whole thing, that they're more than human, and I'm like, I'm not interested in that part of you. I think Maggie O'Farrell did a genius thing in this book with that. Last thing I really loved about this book is the way that the time period is described. There are a lot of things that Agnes and her... Ooh, I tried, did you hear? and her mother-in-law Mary do, but also her brother Bartholomew, which, oh my gosh, I love that name. What a beautiful name that is. He's a farmer. Her family are farmers. And the way that they just have their daily tasks that they do, and I feel like Maggie O'Farrell did so much research because it was so convincing, and because they do so many things that we wouldn't even be thinking about now, like doing the laundry in a really hot room. It was a job that multiple people would do together, mostly the women. Once in a while they would have to do that, and that everyone has a certain relationship towards doing that because it was such hard and tedious work and really intense. And right now, I mean, no one, I think, loves doing laundry, but it's you throw in a load a few times a week and you're good. The way that people would have to spend their energy and time was so different, and I think this book did that so convincingly. I think it's very clear that this is a 5-star. Nothing bad to say about this. I did read Maggie O'Farrell's book that she wrote after this, which is The Marriage Portrait, which I also really enjoyed. I think I gave that a 4.5. Not as good, but if it's on your TBR because you bought it, because you like Hamnet, I would still very much recommend it. I discussed it in one of my Women's Prize vlogs because that one was also nominated. Is it nominated? Picked for the shortlist. yeah, was put on the short list. Then a little bit of a disappointing new release, and it's disappointing because I finished it a few days ago and I have totally forgotten it. Oh no, I remember. Yes, I know. Okay. This is How to Lose a Lord in 10 Days by Sophie Irwin. Now, I thought the cat was up to something. Nora is being super chill. So this is about a duke who doesn't really believe in love. He's a bit of an Anthony Bridgerton and he just needs to marry someone because the dukedom needs more money. He proposes to a woman he has danced with a few times, who is our female main character. She doesn't come from a very noble background, but more of a trade background. It's a Regency romance, by the way. But she has a big dowry, her family has lots of money. And because he's a duke, her guardians are like, you cannot refuse him. This is the best offer you will ever get. She does want love, and she's like, yeah, I don't care that he's a duke. I don't know him. But she knows that it will not be accepted if she refuses him, and that she will have nowhere to go if she does, because she doesn't have access yet to her own money. So she accepts him in the hope that he will break the engagement. So she has 10 days to scare him off, and that's really, really funny because the way that she behaves and dresses is so horrendously offensive to any Regency lord that it's really, really funny. And she of course does everything on purpose. That is basically what this book is, them getting to know each other as well as she trying to scare him away with insulting, like delicately, like just insulting all of his sensibilities with her dress, her behavior, her talking, her voice, her music. It's quite funny, but it's also a little bit forgettable because I didn't find the characters that unique. I mean, they could have been plucked out of any Regency romance. I don't even remember their names. It's good fun. Like, I had fun while listening to this, but it was a bit too long for what it was. I didn't find it as memorable or special as Sophie Irwin's previous novels. So I think I ended up giving this a 3.5. And then, Libor FM, woo! Okay, I got access again to an early copy of Wild Reference by Rebecca Rolls. Might already be out when I'm filming this, but I started listening to this. Rebecca Rolls is the author who wrote the YA series everyone loves with the typewriters and the letters. I will put it here and I will remember. But she wrote New Fantasy. I have seen no press for this, no marketing, nothing. So I was very surprised when I saw it in between my Libor FM list. This is set in, Divine Rivals. This is set in the same world as Divine Rivals, but kind of at the beginning of the type of magic that they have, and we follow an Olympus-like setting where we have a mother who gives birth to a daughter, and one of her friends is the god of war, or a god of war. It's not like Greek myth, but it looks a lot like the relationships on Olympus, and they have all different tiers of magic and they can steal magic from each other as well. So our main character is born with quite little magic, and she's going to become the goddess, I think the goddess or demigoddess, we'll find out, who creates the magic that the characters in Divine Rivals use. I'm loving it so much. It's very straightforward with her coming of age story. It's a bit David Copperfield-esque where we start with her birth. Yeah, I'm having really good feelings about this one. I think it will also, like, latter half of the book will also be romance. I do not know if this is a standalone. I kind of hope it's a series because I really like the world, and this doesn't feel YA, but I will have to double check. So yeah, I'm really excited to keep on listening to that one. The audiobook is top tier. It's so good, so relaxing. Yeah, if I like the book, I would highly recommend listening to the audiobook. I think that's all for this week. I definitely want to pick up another fiction physical read. I think it will be The Besieged City by Clarice Lispector. But first, I really want to get at least halfway through In Women Who Run With Wolves. I'm kind of excited to film a whole analysis review of that one. I'm really excited to do that, but I will have to first finish it, of course. Thank you so much for watching this weekly update. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day or evening, and I'll see you next week. Doei!